Hello, Yawning Angel back again. Yes, it's another AMOS video, and this time in this video we're going to continue on from my previous video, link up here, where we talked about joystick control, being able to control a character on the screen using a joystick. But in this video we're going to specifically be looking at working with Bob, or Blitter objects to be more precise. So without further ado, let's dive in. Before we do get underway though, let me explain what we're going to do. We're going to create a graphic. We're going to bring that graphic into AMOS via the object editor. We're going to cut that graphic out and load it into a Bob image bank. We're then going to bring that image bank into our AMOS program and put it on the screen, and then with a joystick we're going to be able to control its movement around the screen. This is a lot of fun. There's quite a few steps involved. Stick with me because the end results really are worth it and just go to show how powerful AMOS Professional is. So now let's dive in. In Photoshop on my Mac, I've created this graphic. This is a 300 pixel squared image, and on it are some smaller versions of my avatar. And the plan is to use these smaller versions as Blitter objects in the AMOS program. So what I'm going to be doing with this is saving this out as an IFF file, because Photoshop still supports Amiga IFF format, which is really useful. And then I'll get this into the Amiga, probably going to have to load it into Personal Paint to sort out the color depth, because obviously Photoshop on a modern computer is using thousands of colors. I don't have that option on the Amiga. So whip it into Personal Paint, sort out the colors on there, and then have that IFF file, which I can then bring into AMOS to get these avatars out as actual Blitter objects and animate those within my program. So if I just bring up the grid here, you'll see this grey version of the avatar is about 32 pixels squared. The color versions are about 28 pixels squared. I wasn't overly precise, but I was aiming for around the 32 pixel squared ballpark, just to get the images in, because this was just a trial really to see how this could be done. Yes, I could have created the images on the Amiga, but I think, you know, I just wanted to test this and I thought, I want to use my avatar. So here we go. This is what I'm going to do. Just to give you a sense of scale of this, if I make this the actual size, you can see how small this is. But what we'll do, we'll get this file out as an IFF and bring it into the Amiga. Right, so this is my A1200 compact flash card. I've got a folder in here for videos. It's where I dump various files. Here's the IFF file that I created in Photoshop. So we're just going to drag that over. And now let's get that onto the Amiga. So in Personal Paint then, my graphics package of choice, this is where I decided to go to load that transferred image file in. So here I am navigating through my hard drive and looking for the relevant file. So the thought process is here to get the file in. Oh look, there's some other files in here as well. Keep an eye on those. We may have to come back to them. So I choose the YA logo file that I already created, and as you can see from Photoshop, loads of colors there. I'm going to bring this in as 8 colors and obviously do some image manipulation in here. So this is Personal Paint doing its thing, and the file comes in, and to be honest, it doesn't look that great. So I check the image format. Obviously your own mileage will vary on this, it depends how you do it, but I'm running PAL high res. I really wanted 16 colors. So just to give me a bit more depth here and a bit more detail, and that really hasn't worked. So I've obviously done something wrong here, and I need to try and sort this out. In true Blue Peter fashion, here's one I prepared earlier. So this was a version of that same file which I managed to get in as 16 colors. I think I did this in a different resolution. I didn't record that process, and this was done as a test, but this actually worked out okay. So this image is exactly the way I want it. It's got a greater depth of colors for my logo, for my avatar that is. So if I just have a quick zoom in here, you can see this, you know, the detail's not too bad, and I'm happy to use this as a Blitter object for the purposes that we want to use it for in AMOS. Here we are then in AMOS Pro, and what we're going to use here is the object editor. So you go to the user menu and select edit objects to get you into the object editor. In here we'll bring in our IFF file and create our bobs. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but basically across the top the white flag icon is your quit out of here icon. We want the grab icon, so click on the grab icon and then select IFF to pick, and here you can go in and select an IFF file to then cut out your bobs basically. So here's my file, so I go in and I just highlight over that one avatar image. That brings it into the editor. I can now scale that correctly to 32 by 32 pixels just by clicking and dragging. As you can see, it's a little bit fiddly. It depends on the accuracy of your mouse. Anyway, when you're done with that, what you need to do is go up to the top and click on this icon here, and that loads into the first section of the image bank, which is really useful. So now we've got our first image loaded, we can get on with the next. So with our first image loaded, we can now go and get our second image. So I go and select that IFF file again, and now I select a different version of my avatar, highlight over it with the mouse, just click and drag, get a rough sort of box over that. Then come back in here and now just click and drag the frame around that to get it to 32 by 32 pixels. Once done, select bank item number 2, so that's highlighted. Move up to your icon there and click it, and that pushes that second version into the second slot in the image bank. Now it's just a case of going on and doing the other logos as well, so the other avatar images. Same process, load the file in, highlight over the part of the image that you want and try and get it roughly square. Edit it, just scale it here. You can do other things in here, you can change colors, you can draw on it, whatever, but we're just scaling this. I'm just 32 by 32 pixels. It's not precise, this was just a rough exercise. Click on bank slot 3 and click on the icon at the top to load that into the third slot. Then we go back, grab that IFF file again. If anyone knows of an easier way of doing this, I'd love to know. But select your next image, just click and drag over it like that. It's a fine process. It really does depend on how accurate your mouse is. Once again, then scale that to 32 by 32 pixels and go up to the icon at the top, click, and that should load it into slot 4. So now if we have a look, we've got 4 images loaded into slots 1 to 4, and this will form part now of our image bank. So with our image bank loaded with 4 images, we need to come out of this section. So click on the grab icon again, which pushes us back into the object editor. Now select the floppy drive icon, and on the top row, what you now need is to move your mouse along to the end and click on that chip icon with an arrow pointing to a floppy disk. Now it asks you for a bank name. I've already got a bank in there, that's one I was playing around with, but now I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to name this YA Logos .abk. Sorry, I've got my mouse pointer in the way again. I'll never learn. So that's the bank file which we're going to load into our AMOS code later on. So bear in mind this is an image bank, so it has to have the suffix .abk. Click on OK. Save this as a bob bank, yes or no. I want to save it as a bob bank, so I click yes. And pretty much that's it. We're now ready to go. Click on the floppy drive icon again, gets us back to the object editor. Click on the white flag, so I want to quit. I select no at this next point, and now that pushes me back into AMOS. Just very quickly, I wanted to mention the image bank that I've created and the graphics I've created for this exercise. I will not be including in my downloads on my website for this. You'll need to create your own images. So I just want to make that clear now. So where I'm loading in a file YA Logos into this AMOS program, eventually you're going to need to load your own bob bank in. So just create some graphics in any paint package you like, dpaint or whatever, save it off as an IFF as you've seen, and then you can get that loaded into the object editor in here and create your bobs from there. So I just thought I'd mention that now. So wherever you see me loading in an image bank, you'll need to substitute that with your own image bank. Okay, cool. Right, so here we are in the code. So I've created my comments and the steps in here for all the stuff that we're going to be doing. So we've got our bobs rather, they've been saved out. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to set our screen up. Then we're going to load the bob bank, the Blitter object bank. We're then going to set some global variables and initialize them. And we're then going to go into our control loop and we're going to create a procedure for checking the joystick input. So without further ado, let's get going. So we're going to do a screen open 1, which will be 320 by 200 by 16. And this will be a low res screen. We're then going to clear the screen to color 0, which I know in this instance is black. We're going to turn our cursor off and we're going to turn any flashing off as well. We're also going to hide, which will hide the actual mouse. So rem this hides the mouse pointer. Always seems strange to me that the command is just hide, not hide mouse, but there you go. Right, don't forget, we're also going to need the double buffer command in there. See my last video for an explanation on that, or consult the AMOS manual, but you do need that when you're moving graphics around the screen. Right, so that's our screen set up. So we'll just give that a quick test, no errors, and we'll just quickly, yep, that's fine, we've got a black screen, good. Right, so now we're going to load our bob bank. So this will quite simply be load. And if you remember, we called it YA underscore, whoops, capital logos dot ABK. Right, so that should grab our bob bank. Next thing we need to do, which is quite important, we need to get the colors for that bob bank. So we need to run the command get bob palette. And there's only one L in palette, but what that will do, will take the colors from our bobs, and set the palette to those colors, which is really, really important. If you don't do that, you're going to get a color mess on the screen. Right, so that's that one done. Now let's just move the code a bit and let's now create some global variables. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some global variables. Actually, no, I'll tell you what I'm going to do first of all is have a mouthful of tea. Right, I'm going to create some global variables. We might not use all of them to start with, but I'll explain as we go along. Right, so by using the global command there, global x underscore pos. I'll explain these in a bit. You'll probably guess what they already mean. Y underscore pos. We need global, I'm going to call this head speed and global BB number. Right, so what's going on here then? So x pos is our x position, y pos is our y position, head speed is the speed of the bob object, we'll come to that in a minute, and BB number is bob number. Right, now with those defined, I'm now actually going to initialize them. So we'll go for head speed equals 2, we'll go for x pos equals 120, y pos, can have that as 120 as well. BB number, we'll set that to 1. Right, okay, so that's basically saying the speed of our head, our bob object, as you'll see in a minute, is going to be 2. Our x and y position, there's the graphics coordinates on the screen as to where we're going to start the positioning of this object. And BB number, the bob object number, will start off as number 1. Okay, let's get a control loop going then. So we'll have a do loop here. Right, and so the first thing we're going to do is actually bring our bob onto the screen. So we're going to get our bob. So we've loaded the bob bank in. So now we're going to issue the command bob. So our first bob will be located at our X position and our Y position. And what we're going to do, we're going to use the first bob in that bank for now. So if you remember, hopefully there should be a little graphic on the screen here. We've got 4 images in that bank. And what we're going to do, we're going to say that our first bob is going to be located at X and Y. And that's going to be the first image from that bank. So the number on the end here is the image number. So we've got 4 images, so we could have a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in here. But for now, I'm just setting that to 1. We are going to change this later, but I just want to show you this working for now. Right, the next instruction we're going to issue is wait VBL. So Yawning Angel, what does wait VBL do? So basically, it's an instruction to tell AMOS to wait for the next vertical blank line. I'm not going to go into the technicalities of that, but you will need this if you're doing animation on the screen. And in the AMOS Professional Manual, it is on page 060205. 060205 will explain all about wait VBL, but you do need it. Yes. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is go to the procedure called sticks, which I haven't yet written. I'm also going to do, we're going to check for the fire button being pressed, and then when the fire button is pressed, we'll actually exit the program. So what we'll do is if fire 1, and we'll just set that to exit, end if on there. Right, let's just tidy this code up a bit. Undefined procedure, because I haven't actually done that yet. So now what I'm going to do is create our procedure sticks and end proc. So now I should be able to go up here and just tidy this code up. Brilliant, done that. Right, so basically in our sticks procedure, we're just checking the joystick, really. So this is quite straightforward. So it's if j up 1. So if the joystick is up, and then what we'll do is y pos will change the position of y pos, or the value of y pos, sorry. Y underscore pos minus head underscore speed. So what we're saying here is our y position, which starts off at 120, will be minus the head speed, which is 2. So it'll start to move the elements up the screen. So if you reduce your value, you go up. If you increase the value, you go down. And that's all we need to do there for now. And tidy that up. Right, next one. If j down 1, and this time we're just going to do y pos equal y pos plus, because we're going to go the other way, head underscore speed, and if, let's tidy that up. So now we're going to go left. So if j left 1, and this time it's going to be x pos equal x pos, x pos, which is going to be minus head underscore speed, and if, let's tidy that up. Okay, so yes, if we go left, we're going to take our x position, which starts off at 120, and then we're going to go back, because if we're going left, you're going back across the screen. If you're going right, you're going to go across the screen. Right, does that make sense? No, I've messed that up. Just watch the code, you'll see what I mean. If j right 1, so now x pos equal x pos plus head underscore speed, and if. Right, so what's going to happen if we go right, we take our x position and we're going to increase the value, and that value will be whatever head speed is. And that is, yeah, that's it. That's all I need to do. J right, we've got up, down, left and right there. Let me just tidy this up, and let me just put an end in there. Check, that's okay. Right, so let's just check there's no errors on that. So let's quickly just go through what are we doing here. So in step 1, we're setting the screen up. Step 2, we're loading in our ABK file. So this is our Bob bank. This has been loaded in. We get the palette for that. We set some global variables in step 3. We initialize them. Step 4, we've got a control loop where we now position our Bob on the screen, our first Bob. Bob, don't get confused with this. This is Bob number 1 on the screen, and it's Bob number 1 from the bank that we're loading in. But if we want to change that to a 2, 3, or 4, we can do, because we have 4 images in our bank. We then do a wait for vertical blank line, which AMOS needs. We then go to our sticks procedure and we check for up, down, left and right, and we press fire to exit the program. So let me press F1 and see what we get. Look at that, we've got that image on the screen. So that is image 1 from our bank. So that is the one we're working with, that is Bob 1 in effect. And now if I move my joystick, so let's do this. If I go left, look at that, it's moving. If I go right, it's moving. If I go up, it's moving. If I go down, look at that, I can go diagonally. We have a Bob moving around the screen. Brilliant. That's good news. Now what I'm going to do, if I press fire to exit that, you'll notice up here I set a global variable for Bob number, BB number. I can't call it Bob because Bob is a reserved word in AMOS and it tries to do stuff with it. So just as a variable it's BB. So I've set it to 1 initially, but now what I'm going to do down here, I'm going to change this to use BB number. And you'll find when I run this program, nothing has changed because it's still number 1. But if I go down here to my movement bits, so my left and right, this is what I want to be doing. So on left, if my joystick is left, I want to set BB number equals 2. No, I don't. I want that to be 1. If I go right, I want to change the graphic. BB number 2. So that will be the second Bob in our bank. So there should be a little image on the screen showing you that. So we're going for the second Bob. So now check that, no errors. So if I go press F1, so if we look at the screen now, we've got our Bob as we are normally. So if I go left, there it is. If I go right, look at that, the Bob has changed. If I go left, it changes again. If I go right, it changes again. Look at that. Is that amazing or what? Up and down, nothing really happens, but it's only on the left and right. I'm telling the Bob to change, to take the first image from the bank, and when I go right, it brings in the second image from the bank. So it gives us a bit of animation, which is fantastic. So look at that. I would say that's a success. We have managed to get a Bob into our program, and we can now use the joystick to move that around the screen. Fantastic. Okay, so I've made some changes in here. Now, if you remember, we've got 4 images in that Bob bank. So what I've added, I mean, you probably use more suitable graphics for this, but all I've done is if we go up, I've changed the Bob number to use the Bob that's in position 3. If we go down, we use the Bob that's in position 4. And I've done this only just to show that we have actually loaded in all 4 of those images that we created earlier. So if I press F1 now, so there's our Bob 1. So if I go left, if I go right, that's our Bob 2. If I go up, that should be our Bob 3. And if I go down, it's our Bob 4. Just to prove that those images are in there and the program is changing them accordingly. Obviously, if we go diagonally, it doesn't change. There's no doubt code for that. We can look at that in another video. But that's working. We are loading those Bobs properly, and we're making use of them in the code based on our joystick movements because that's what we've coded. So that is a great success, and there's so much scope there to do other things with that, creating different types of graphics. You can get the animation looking really, really slick. So this is great. Awesome. And that's it for another video. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope this video has been of some use to you. Please don't forget the source code for this program is available to download from my website, and the link is down here. Right, if you want to leave any comments for this video, please do so in the comment section down below. You can catch me on Twitter and on Mastodon. I also have a KoFi account. Please check me out on there if you wish to. I'd like to give a huge thank you to all the wonderful people who have left some amazing comments for me about these AMOS videos. They've been hugely supportive and just keep me going basically when it comes to producing these. Thank you everyone for your support. It does seem that there's a lot of love out there for AMOS and a lot of love for getting back into AMOS on the Amiga, which can only be a good thing. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like what I do, subscribe to my channel. There will be more AMOS videos coming in the future. But until then, whatever you do, take care of yourselves and keep it retro.